Welcome to Digital Ship webinar. Today we are presenting the final edition from the series Making Maritime Cybersecurity Easier, sponsored by Inmarsat. And today we are discussing Seafarer training in cybersecurity. I'm happy to introduce you to two guest speakers. Please welcome them, Florian Felde, Chief Operating Officer at Waterway IT Solutions, and Dr. Michael Thurlbeck, CEO at Stapleton International. Now we are diving straight into the webinar story with Carl Jeffrey, founding editor of Digital Ship.
Okay, so the topic today is training seafarers in cybersecurity. And I'd like to start the same way as we did last week. So we emphasize this is about risk management. It's not about following a checklist or a list of instructions. So we want to be training seafarers to get better at understanding, identifying and reducing cyber risks. So that's pretty similar to how they're trained to handle other kinds of risks they come across. So that's navigation safety, operational safety, personal safety. So here's an example of how not to do it. So there's an interesting comment made by a seafarer in the Mission to Seafarers Seafarer Happiness Survey for the fourth quarter of 2020. He said, "There's been so much cyber awareness and training, but there's no change to the ancient equipment that we're using." So I'm guessing this particular seafarer can see that it's pretty pointless learning how to do cybersecurity if you're still using old computers like Windows XP and your only defense is what you let into the PCs, the passwords and the USB sticks and the antivirus. And this company's taking massive cyber risks, which can't be fixed with training. So it shows there's no point in just focusing on training if the digital technology is poor. And also, I wouldn't expect this seafarer to think it's worth making much effort in cybersecurity. And perhaps this seafarer already knows more about cyber risk management than his employer does. So that's how not to do it. So let's have a look at a better way to understand risks and how seafarers can be trained to do this. So our first speaker today is Florian Felde, who's the Chief Operating Officer with Waterway IT Solutions in Hamburg. He's also a former head of fleet IT with Arendkiel Steamship. So he's going to give us real examples of shipboard cybersecurity hacks, some examples of phishing emails sent to ships, so you can see what crew need to look for. And he's going to give some ideas about how to approach crew training. Then the second speaker is Dr. Michael H Thurlbeck, who's the CEO of Stapleton International, which is a management consultancy based in Singapore, focusing on, he's a former vice president with Kvaerner Oil and Gas. And his company also developed a course together with Inmarsat, supporting seafarer awareness on cybersecurity. So he's going to explain what seafarers need to know about the biggest risks and the common ways that hackers gain access and other hacking related threats seafarers should know about. We're going to have two presentations of about 15 minutes and there should be plenty of time for questions. You can see a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and enter questions anytime. So I'd like to invite Florian to give his opening talk. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning from my side as well. Many thanks to Vida and Carl for this good introduction, and also many thanks to Inmarsat and Digital Ship for the invitation. So, as Carl already said, today we will not talk about technical measures because this has already been perfectly addressed from Laurie, Yuri, and Michalis in the last week's sessions. So today we will talk about the seafarer training for cybersecurity. So let's go. We will start with a very good quote from Bruce Schneier. Bruce Schneier is a very well-known American computer security professional. Amateurs hack systems and professionals hack people. I think it's a very good quote to start with because, you know, security cameras and alarm systems are good if you have them in your house. I mean, but you need to know how to switch them on. Yeah? So we need to take care about a proper training because the attackers, the hackers, they will hack people. So let's first of all start with the hazards for ship operations and business. And maybe you're aware about it, but let's very briefly touch this. So if there is a hacker and he is able to attack a vessel, what can happen? So manipulation or failure of navigation systems because the actors is connected today. Unauthorized access to monitoring and control systems. Today, we have interconnected systems. We have the actors connected. We have the ballast water treatment system connected, you know, the engine management systems, and so on and so on. So, and even we can have access from the outside, yeah, from shoreside. And just imagine what can happen if somebody, like a hacker, have access from remote to that systems. A breakdown, very simple one, breakdown of the onboard communication system. Yeah. So yes, it's a simple one, but again, if there is no communication on board, we are not able to send out the INOAD reports in time and so on. And if we have a very crucial situation on board, we are not able to communicate properly with the shoreside. A very serious one is the unintentional disclosure of security-related and sensitive information. Of course, we are talking about passwords and so on, but just imagine what will happen if your crew will send out very sensitive corporate related informations to the outside world. In the end, it will lead into a financial loss, maybe due to extortion. We all know that MERS scenario with the ransomware attack, but also of fire times or the repair costs. And in the end, of course, it will lead to a damage to your reputation. So failure or manipulation of onboard IT systems poses a risk to safety, security, and economic interests. So let's talk about the challenges for the crew. First of all, we have seafarers on board, yeah? And the seafarers, they have to deal with shipping and the operational business on a ship. So they have very often a lack of IT knowledge. And what comes next? They have no time to deal with IT issues on board. And we have constantly changing and evolving IT systems. Just imagine back a few years maybe, we have only one communication computer on board, and it was possible to send and receive emails. Good. But today, all the systems, especially when we are talking about new buildings, we have interconnected systems on board. So again, the engine control system is connected, the VDR is connected, the ballast water treatment, the scrubber system, the actors, and so on. Everything is connected, and the crew have to deal with the issues on board. And unfortunately, sometimes, and this is the feedback which we very often receive, once newly introduced systems are on board, like we had it in the past few years with the mandatory actor systems, there is insufficient training for newly introduced systems. So the crew sometimes, they don't know how to deal with such systems on board. And unfortunately, sometimes with IT issues, the crew is completely on its own. Yeah, because we have the different time zones. Sometimes there is no IT personnel available on shoreside to answer questions and so on. What we have also learned very often is that we have a missing familiarization with IT procedures, or IT procedures are not available at all. So here we are talking about password policies, for example, but as well how to update the software on board, but also how to deal with third parties who would like to stick a USB stick into the computer. And of course, cyber threat awareness and understanding. The crew, they don't know which threats we have and what could happen if we have been attacked. And we have the constantly changing requirements, IMO 2021. So this is already a huge piece of cake. So they have to deal with it. So the crew is often not adequately trained or even able to deal with IT requirements on board. So let's talk about the real attacks now. And we have today a real phishing attack in our presentation. So phishing, first of all, phishing is a type of social engineering where an attacker sends a fraudulent, so-called spoofed message designed to trick a human victim into revealing sensitive information to the attacker. So this is one of the most common threats in shipping today. Let's check one of these real phishing attacks which we experience with our customers. So just have a look at this email. And yes, I agree with you. This already looks fishy. But again, email communication is very crucial for the crew on board. And for sure, there will be a captain who's asking, oh, damn, there are 37 quarantine incoming messages in a mailbox. And maybe one of this message is really important for me. So I have to review them. Yes, so this could already happen. But yes, I agree with you. This already looks fishy. But let's check the other one. Look at this one. And yes, we at Waterway, we needed to check twice because this email really looks official from a port state control, but it is a phishing attack. And I will show you why and explain you why. First of all, this email address, captain@harboroffice.org, is not a known email address from the port state control in the respective harbor. We have checked it with the port state control on site and they confirm, no, it's not a valid one. And it already has been reported that somebody is trying to trick the vessels in our name. So this is already an indication for the phishing attack. Next one. Unfortunately, in our industry, it's very common to say, dear captain, and everybody will feel addressed. You know, when I'm receiving on shore side an email with dear sir, yeah, I will ask myself why he's not using my name. But unfortunately, in shipping, dear captain is already very common. So this is already a good example how easy it is to address an email. And this email has been sent to 20 other emails around the globe, to 20 vessels around the globe. Next one. Please reply via captain@harboroffice.org. The attacker really wants to make sure that not the very well-known address from the port state control on site is used. No, he wants to have the reply to that specific email address. This email signature looks okay, but it is already poor. Normally, this email signature, you can copy paste from every other email and you can write whatever you like. So, but in this case, and of course, this email has been anonymized, but here you can already see, yeah, well, it looks already a bit fishy. But the most important one is the attachment. And already here, it looks official, but it is not. When you open that email attachment, this Word files, there will be shown a link. And when you click on that link, you will be asked to enter very sensitive information. For example, the schedule, the vessel schedule, if you have available goods on board, if you have weapons on board, if you have armed guards on board, how many guys you have on board, and so on and so on. With this information, maybe you already have a good picture to attack the vessel when the situation maybe in the next port will come. So please be aware about such emails because they are very common nowadays. And this is, as far as what we can see, this is an increasing number of emails which will be sent to the vessels. And normally the vessels cannot recognize from the first instant that it's a phishing attack. So because of that, we at Waterway, what we are offering is a simulated phishing attack. So with such campaigns, it's good to train your crew and the crew awareness, because this is a template. And of course, this template will be tailored to your specific business profile. But this is an email which we will send to the vessels in order to ask the crew to click on the link. And luckily, this is then only a test purpose and not a real phishing attack. And we already did it with several vessel companies, and the feedback which we have received is always good. And we would like to show you the outcome, the results from one of these campaigns now. So we have sent, and this is a customer with nearly 100 vessels, we have sent 292 emails to this nearly 100 vessels. The open rate is 92%. So 269 emails have been opened on board. And even worse, unfortunately, the link which we have provided inside that email has been clicked from 90 seafarers. Getting worse again, we have an interaction rate of 44 seafarers. That means 44 seafarers, they clicked on the link, opened the website, and they entered the sensitive information we asked for. And we have a reply rate. 31 seafarers, they replied directly right away with very sensitive information, and they disclosed corporate related information to us very easily. And yes, you could say it's a good result, because talking about 100 vessels, we have 30% click rate. And yes, there are some with the interaction rate and some of the seafarers they reply to. But in the end, please always be reminded, every click or response poses a major security risk. So with recurring security campaigns, you train your crew to act wisely in the right moment. Let's very briefly talk about the crew member requirements in regards to the support. First of all, we have to train the crew in dealing with threats from email attacks. Next one, internet usage, because today with VSAT on board and with a flat rate, we are offering more and more, and especially what we have seen last year due to COVID, the internet is open and the crew is able, not only from the private devices, they have also sometimes from the business network, completely open network. So we need to train them how to use the internet and the social media. Handling of private devices, because they have their private notebooks, maybe they download the last Actus update or the last loading plan for the loading computer or whatever, and they go to their private notebook and afterwards to the business network with their USB sticks. So we need to train them how to handle these scenarios. Of course, how to protect username and passwords. This is very important as well. And we just have a short briefing this morning before the sessions. Yes, normally what you can find is the password sticking on the monitors. So of course, this is not helpful. How to deal with authorization of third-party access on board or remote. So we have service engineers coming on board very often. So what the crew should do if they are asking to connect their private devices or to connect the USB sticks to the Actus, to the engine monitoring system or whatever. So how the crew, normally what they are doing is say, please go ahead, but we need to train them how to deal with it. And even worse, TeamViewer. Normally third parties today are asking for TeamViewer, so remote access from shoreside to the vessels. So we need to train the crew when to give access and maybe ask before if the service or so-called service company is really scheduled to do a remote maintenance or not. So authorization of third-party access, we need to train the crew. The correct approach concerning IT processes. So we already talked about it. So how to deal with updates, how to deal with password policies, how to deal with, in general with IT on board. So we have to train them how to do this and that. And of course, we need to train them in order to understand the threats for ship operations, because only then they are aware. So they need to know what can happen if I open an email, if I give access to somebody else, which I maybe don't know, and so on. And of course, in the end, because today we are sitting here managing the IMO 2021 requirements. So with a well-trained crew, we are quite convinced that you are able to drastically reduce cyber risk and improve operational business and processes. So what do I have to consider when doing the training? Plan training sessions close to practice, relevant and attractive. Please, it's not always necessary to be 120%. Yeah, it sometimes is always good to do already a good practice which is close to practice and training, and which is relevant and attractive. For example, with our cybersecurity campaigns, we are sending out an email, and after the campaigns, after 4 weeks, we will give the crew a short feedback how to look at next time when you are receiving such an email. So this is already a good example and good training course, because in the end, they have also an outcome from this training. And organize recurring security awareness campaigns. This is very important because it's good to do it once, but security is a process, and you have to organize the recurring security awareness campaigns so that everybody is really aware and constantly reminded about security on board, like a safety drill, which you have in your maintenance systems. So check on a regular basis whether the training activities were successful, because this is really important. In the end, you can do trainings, but you need to know if they are really successful. And of course, what is important, reasonable familiarization with all relevant IMO 2021 matters. And I know sometimes they're very bureaucratic, but in the end, in this documentation, you will find very good and also practice relevant information, which will help the crew in order to know how to deal with cybersecurity on board. And this is one of my favorite involved maritime IT expert if no in-house know-how is available. I have another quote with me, and this is a quote from a former head of security, maritime security at BIMCO. Unfortunately, Giles Noakes died in 2017. But the first step towards a change in behavior is awareness. Seafarer and offshore crew need to understand the threats before they can mitigate the risk. And a piece of cake from our side, because it's a very, very important topic. Technical protection systems are vital. You need to have the technical measures in place. But security is a holistic approach, so don't forget the human firewall. Thanks a lot. So far, I'm happy and I'm looking forward to the Q&A session, and I'm happy to discuss further, maybe also after the session, so please get in touch with us.
Oh, thank you very much, Florian. So now I'd like to welcome Dr. Mick Thurlbeck, who's joining us from the Maasvlakte west of Rotterdam, although he's normally in Singapore. So I'd like to welcome Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Hope you can see me okay.
Yep. You start the slides, Vida.
Vida.
Just a moment, please.
Yep.
I simply had to reload the slides. Sorry for that.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Very, very interesting points there by Florian, and no surprise, many of them are repeated in this presentation because the maritime cyber cannot be differentiated from one vessel to another and not from one company to another. So on this first slide, it's just showing a typical vessel with the amount of systems that you would expect to see on board. Typically 15 systems there. Every one of them is susceptible when a mariner is on board a vessel. If they are hacked or, as we'll come on to shortly, any phishing attempts to get into the vessel can obviously penetrate any of these systems. Each one very, very dangerous if they do get into them. There have been lots of examples where people have got into these systems, although, as Florian previously said, the main thing with ship owners and ship management companies is reputational damage if these things are widely advertised and circulated. Just as one of the statistics we have from our partner Inmarsat about the amount of information from a vessel. On a typical vessel nowadays, an engine room alone with anything between 1,000 and 2,000 sensors transmits the same amount of information per month. This is one vessel per month, which is equivalent to anybody surfing the internet for 65 consecutive years. When you think of the amount of data that's been transponded around the world, that is a staggering market for any hackers to get into cyber. So where does it all start? On the next slide, we'll show where the entrance into systems are of various spam mails, as we'll see the different versions now. Emails coming into people or things through social media asking you to do these things. And social engineering is probably the biggest target market for people at the moment, because as well as using the systems on board, people have got their own smartphones, iPads, and so forth, and usually getting in with spam messages, not necessarily through email, but also things through social media when people ask to, what was your favorite film or your favorite quote? And you go into these things on social media, and lots of people don't realize that they're actually, everybody is trawling through, collecting information. Some of that information is for advertising purposes. I stress to say probably about 90% of it is, but you don't know what the other 10% is being used for. I had an interesting, on the next slide, you'll see that I had an interesting email sent in to me just the other day, the 18th of June. I got this email which said my BritBox account, as you can see there, your account hasn't been processed. And then as the next little screen share that I've got shows you, all I had to do is update my card details. It is absolutely staggering from information we have, the amount of people who think that, is a real bona fide email. And this is Florian did say, this is a phishing email where people will go. And if you think of the ability for people to send out not thousands, but millions, if they want to, of emails just to try and hit somebody. And if somebody actually goes into that and update the card details, well, they'll wipe their account out. And these things do happen without a shadow of a doubt. It's happening. I know people, not just Marins, but people on shore who've unfortunately had to ring the bank and they're panicking like mad because they've cleaned their account out. That's on a personal thing with, your finances and personal information. But when you're doing that on board a system, on board a vessel, and they get into your systems, the effects of that are not personal, they're not financial. They're obviously a big risk to safety, not just for the vessel's point of view, but from personnel on board. And the next slide that we show is, which everybody knows, that 50% of disruptions are introduced through USB computer port abuse. Things like a little memory stick, as you'll see here. Now, I know lots of people have taken protection against that. The awareness training, we tell people not to use a USB on board. Don't let third party who come onto the vessel to use these things. Some people go to the next length where the USB ports on any terminals or computers are blocked off. But quite often, this is a regular thing that you see. People they think because they're not putting USB in, everything's safe. But here's a typical thing, people charge the phones up from PCs. The information on that smartphone is not just personal, that can also transmit to get into vessel systems and create all sorts of problems. So it's not just, it's the USB port, not the stick. Once people get into the system, this is an actual live event, which on the 22nd of June, Maritime Administration got a bland report from a vessel off the Russian port, and his GPS put him in the wrong position. His actual position, as you'll see on the next pop-up, was quite scary. He's 32 kilometers inland. Now, it's obvious that couldn't be true, but as far as the person on the vessel was concerned, his system had been hacked, and that's where they were showing him to be. The other thing, not just the GPS, but there was an incident a few years ago reported by the American Coast Guard that actually a DPS, dynamic positioning, from a semi-submersible vessel off the coast of America, that started to malfunction, so they had to immediately stop drilling, and the vessel was started to drift about, obviously putting tremendous strains on their anchoring facilities, and that was because their DPS had been penetrated by somebody. Rumours were that it had been traced through somebody's personal data, through via credit card and everything, were unsubstantiated, but somehow somebody got in to start affecting the system. So, three main areas of the cybersecurity, which we don't know, we can't handle probably. The scale of the thing is one of the biggest risks the industry's previously ever dealt with, without a shadow of a doubt. These things are, it's phenomenal with the increase in our reliance on IT and internet and satellite communications and everything. It's a huge target for these people. the space that they operate in, again, it's a massive space. It's global. It's not specific to people in Singapore. It's not specific to people in Rotterdam, where I am at the moment. It is global. And because we don't know the space, it is a real issue. I remember a quote at a conference a few years ago in Singapore when a guy from the military stood up, and he was saying that in years ago, when you have a battle with other nations, or you have a battle with companies and that, or even if it's a boxing match or something like that, you can actually see your opponent and you've got a good idea of what weapons they've got. But in the case of cyber fraud, nobody knows what they are, and the space can be happening anywhere. And of course, the other thing which happens in every element of our lives is time. It's not just the number of incidents. It's because they take place over a number of time. It's difficult to pinpoint the attacker, because lots of these things, and I'm not an IT professional, I'm just from a maritime background. A lot of these things are, you see them on, we used to watch these things on movies years ago, and we thought it was all sci-fi, but it's a realistic thing that maybe these people, through an email, as I showed you earlier in my BritBox, there might not be any immediate action, but that thing is lying there. And then at some point in time, they want to activate that, and they can do it whenever they want. And one of the biggest issues that were found out, certainly within the scope of things, one of our Singapore partners who carries out not just maritime cybersecurity, but also general energy industry cybersecurity, that they find out a lot of these things. These people are moving away now from, as mentioned by Florian, the previous one about the Maersk, about the ransomware and that. There has been a shift lately in the past couple of years to get onto individuals. And if you look at these people, if they lay a trap to people through a phishing email and something, if they can trap 1,000 people and get $2, $3, $4, $5 from 1,000 people, it's good income to them. And for them, it's very, very smart way of hacking. If they've got somebody into there, lots of people don't check a bank account, and they probably wouldn't miss $2 or $3 from their bank statement. I know my wife would, but it doesn't worry me about if I see something on my regular bank statement, and that's how they're going about doing things. I'm now going to follow on. We developed an awareness course with our partners, Inmarsat. So there's just a short 1-minute video to give you an idea of what needs to be done as far as awareness training is concerned.
Most everyone, and it is becoming a serious issue for the maritime industry. Modern ships and seafarers are prime targets for cyber attacks. Onboard systems such as the GPS, ECDIS, radar, and autopilot systems are all open to this growing threat. And it's not just vessel navigation that is at risk. The control systems for ballast water, vessel stability, engine and propulsion control, to name but a few, are all targeted by increasingly sophisticated cyber criminals. Maritime cybersecurity is now a major threat to the industry, and it is only through the training and awareness of the workforce that this threat can be neutralized. The infrastructure supporting shipping is also under attack. In addition to the equipment on board vessels, there are similarly vulnerable systems located in ports and offices across numerous maritime support businesses and organizations. It's not just the maritime companies that are at risk. Personal finances and family security are also under threat. Cybercriminals have been responsible for identity thefts that result in their victims facing criminal charges or having money taken from their bank accounts without permission. Ask yourself, how experienced am I? How experienced are my team? Am I confident that myself could spot the first signs of a cyber attack? Do my colleagues and I have a good understanding of more than just the basics of computer security? So how does all this impact a seafarer in their day-to-day role? As an example, Have you ever wondered about how secure the navigational software that's used on the average ship is? The truth is, it's probably more vulnerable than you can imagine.
So there we are. It's a quick summary. Obviously, you know, we do have an active interest in increasing awareness training across the maritime sector. Personally, I'm long in the tooth, and some people call it a very old man, but I've seen some horrific, and I mean horrific, incidents in my career. Piper Alpha, Exxon Valdez, and the big incident in the Gulf of Mexico a few years ago. My real worry is that someday someone will get in and get control of a vessel, and there will be a major incident, which could result in loss of millions. I'm not bothered about. It's loss of life at my real concern. So there you are.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Oh, thank you. That's great. Yeah, no, so well, this is what we need to know about how this stuff can get more. So I'll just go quickly through. We've got lots of interesting questions. So there's about 3 of those, I think, summarize in basically understanding the threats. So Captain Mohd Awiskani Bim Shamsuddin, who's with Sapura Energy in Malaysia. So he's asking, how can companies be better at incident sharing? Chris Henney's asking the same question about cyber incident reporting, and Lewis Guarin, who's a naval architect in Glasgow, is asking, how do we know more about the risks about IT systems on board? That's a very, very difficult question to answer, but I don't know if you've got any thoughts for 1 or 2 minutes, Florian and Mick, about better sharing of our experiences with hacking. Do you want to go first, Florian?
Yes, of course. Thanks a lot. So let's start with the improve the experience share for incident related to cybersecurity. For us, it's always important to share information. And I know shipping companies, sometimes they fear to give out that information. And this also is in regard to the question of the anonymous cyber incident reporting. So if we have an incident, we have to talk about it. First of all, we have to report it, because only then we can learn from such incidents, and we can improve security systems, and we can inform others in dealing with this specific attack. So reporting is always good. If it's in public or if it's anonymous, please report cyber incidents, because only then we can improve in maritime cybersecurity. The other one is share experiences. If you are receiving, for example, talking about a phishing email, and a captain is reporting some emails like, it looks fishy, please check. And if it's confirmed, it's a confirmed phishing attack, just take that email, take a screenshot, and share it with the entire fleet. Because say, hey, captain has reported a phishing attack. Just check that email and look at this email. Please don't click on it if you have received it as well. But as well, please always take a look or closer look to such emails, because only then we can raise awareness about such phishing attacks.
Well,
yeah, I'd just like to add what Florian said there. We did, again, it was discussed at several conferences in Singapore a couple of years back, when there were moves by various governments actually to implement a system where people could record any cyber incidents instantly, and this was available to all vessels, which is great. That's what everybody wants. But at the end of the day, it's reputational damage. That if some fleet has something in the system and that's broadcast to everybody, our customers going to be enthralled about that, or are they going to be put off and go to a competitor? It's the same with everything. If you get complaints about a restaurant and they go around social media, people stay away from that restaurant, whether it's rightly or wrong. So that is a big barrier. But that's global life,
There's a very interesting question at the bottom of the list here from Oliver Schwartz from Chartworld. So he's going in the other direction. Why is shipping not training seafarers like we train other employees. So I've seen people in companies get emails, have big red lines saying this email has come from outside the organization. Don't click on anything unless you're absolutely sure. I've seen companies that ban USB sticks. So I guess this isn't happening on ships. So I guess it's a lot harder to do it on ships than it is in corporate offices. Is that something either of you would like to comment on, do you think?
I would, well, my first comment to that is that you don't have such a, you don't tend to have a transient workforce when you work on shore side, basically, in any business. You know, if you look at, I don't know, if you look at a big engineering company, say, based here in Rotterdam, will not change their personnel every 4 months and bring other crew people on. It's a transient workforce, and they go from vessel to vessel to vessel. I do fully agree, and that's why IMO brought the regulations out, that everybody should be trained. They should be. Some people do it, some people don't. Some people have been carrying out fully structured training courses aligned to classification societies, or aligned as we are to Inmarsat, University of Sunderland, Inmarsat, Maritime Port Authority in Singapore. So they have these courses. Other people go to the end that their maritime cyber awareness course is a toolbox talk by a captain one Sunday afternoon. You know, people have different levels. We need to get a level playing field across everybody in the maritime sector. But no company in the world likes to spend money on training. Well, that's a different argument, but it's something that we're faced with.
Yeah, maybe for Florian, I mean, there are technical means of solving these problems. You can disable USB ports, you can whitelist emails, and people do all these things in offices. And I guess as an IT expert, is this feasible to do on ships more than we're seeing, or is this something you've thought of doing?
Yes, of course, to a certain extent, it is possible. I mean, we have, endpoint protections and, other technical measures where we can protect our systems on board. I mean, we could also close down the USB port from a loading computer so that it's not possible to use anymore. But just imagine, the problem is you can deactivate all those things. But if there is a planner coming in the port on board and would like to share the loading files with the chief officer, so they are not able to, to upload it to the computer. So yes, we can protect the systems, but sometimes it's not possible. So sometimes we have to have the human firewall again in order to protect the systems.
That's great. So I'd like to go to Mick with this question from Captain Mode Awiskani again. So he's asking about how we can make the safety culture that's not just a paper exercise. You mentioned Piper Alpha, because I remember that was one of the things that came up in the study into Piper Alpha, that they were treating safety as a bureaucracy and they weren't actually thinking about risk. That was my summary of it. But is that something? Do you have any thoughts about how?
Well, I actually worked on Piper Bravo, the replacement for Piper Alpha. So I lived and breathed through the Culling Report, which was, 2 documents about that thick. Some marvelous stuff came out of it, which totally revolutionized the design and operability of topsides. There was some massive things came out of the Exxon Valdez, such as, double hulls and things like this. I hate to say this, it actually takes a huge, huge incident to actually focus people as much as they should be. If Piper Alpha had not occurred, I doubt if we'd have the safety of platforms offshore that we do nowadays. It brought about changes in design. There was no such thing as a temporary safe refuge offshore, which is mandatory now. There were no such thing as H120 blast walls. They were known of, but they weren't I wouldn't say readily available. They were readily available. They weren't a normal thing to fit these things. It is all around about cost, from my personal opinion. It should be done. We've got the regulations there. We've got the expertise with the companies like Florian. We can do it, but people need to get together, and we've got to realize that this could be, it could be, I wouldn't say 100% solvable, because I don't believe it is, but we could get very, very close to that. I often get taught when I speak at conferences or seminars, I'm often branded as a scaremonger. about saying these things can happen and these things can happen. I used to say the same thing to my daughters when they were growing up. Make sure you look right, left and right again when you're crossing, you know. Fortunately, my daughters are still with me. They will, you know, they can safely cross a road. My grandchildren can do that as well. But if you take the stance where you don't teach people to cross a road, well, they might walk in front of a car. And if we don't get together and don't realise this can be a real game spoiler, we'll continue doing the same thing. And we've got to appreciate that there are some shipping companies and some ship management companies who will always do the minimum because the bottom line is sacrosanct.
Well, I mean, this comes round to this reporting subject again. I mean, there's clearly stuff going on. Otherwise, nobody would want to be on these webinars or anything. But we don't know much about the threats. I mean, Florian, I imagine you must have seen a few actual things. I don't know if you're able to tell, maybe without mentioning the name of the client or anything. But you can see on these questions here. So P. Davis is asking, he's picking on if the navigational systems are correctly put together, then there shouldn't be a cybersecurity risk. I think that's basically what he's saying. And Louis Goarin at the end is saying that the IT system of all should be segregated to some degree, so you shouldn't be able to hack into propulsion systems. I don't really know. It's very difficult to know how to respond because you don't want to say, oh, you're safe, but also people do need to have a higher resolution understanding of the risks, don't they, to respond properly. I don't know.
Yeah, let's first of all answer the question. The IT and safety critical systems are not segregated. So, I mean, for all our customers, of course, it's in place, yeah, because we know how to deal with such a systems, and IT and OT is completely dedicated, yeah? Because if you have a security incident or an attack on your business network, of course, you need to make sure that for example, active systems or other monitoring and control systems are not affected as well. But, you know, in real world, in real life, what we are seeing and when we are onboarding new customers, it's not the case. Because sometimes, you know, an active company or somebody else is coming on board and they are asking just, where's the switch? Where can I plug my network cable in? And if you have a normal switch, which is not equipped with security features, I mean, in the end, the system is working properly because you can update the actors charts and so on and so on. But the problem is if there is an attack on your email computer, for example, and you are clicking on a virus or a ransomware or whatever, it will be distributed on all other systems connected to your business network. And unfortunately, yes, it should be dedicated from each other, but in real life, unfortunately, as far as we can see, it's not.
Oh, so linking to Anil Gopal's question at the bottom, so he's saying you need to think about people, process, and technology all together. So I guess that seafarers can see, well, yes, actors should be safe, but I need to be aware that it's possible for something to go, and if it's connected by a cable, no matter what's on it, it's always a possibility. I suppose that's kind of how we're saying, sort of deeper understanding of the possibilities, I guess, is what we want seafarers to do.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to train the crew, because what we have seen very often, sometimes it's equipped in the right way, but then there is an issue and the crew is on its own. What they are doing, they are unplugging a network cable and just plugging it somewhere else to a port which is maybe not connected anymore. And maybe it will work. Sometimes, yes, it is working, but it is not protected anymore. So whenever they have an issue on board, they need to have a proper support, because otherwise, even if you're protected before, maybe afterwards it is gone. So because of that, it is really important, first of all, to train the crew, and on the other hand, to have somebody who can answer those questions if you have problems.
Wow.
Yeah, and as I said in my thing as well, Florian, we not my company, but one of our partners, Athena Dynamics in Singapore, they've come across things where people have been on board a vessel 3 or 4 months previously and nothing's happened. They've gone on and they've been given permission to use the USB for whatever to upgrade a system, or nothing's happened. Then all of a sudden, 4 or 5 months later, ping, and that's the danger. But in the thing about the people, process and training, I do have a like I say, old man. people have got this perception that the world, 55,000 merchant vessels sailing the seas at the moment, that these are all real, efficient, well-maintained, well-equipped vessels. They're not. We've got some rust buckets out there, where systems, some of these people, these vessels are probably launched and they've been sailing for long. The only IT system I had initially was maybe as a loadmaster, which I can remember the days where you used to watch the train rolling around, when they were rolling and unloading. And then you go to a vessel that's probably launched, there's one across the road to me here, the big Maersk one that's got about 18,500, 20,000 boxes on board. Of course, it's got the most efficient systems in the world. But it's a sliding scale of it, what these vessels have got. Not everybody's got a nice, seamless suite of IT systems that all operate together. I always try and bring things away from things to break it down basic. It's the difference between somebody having a house and building several extensions on, putting a new bathroom in, downstairs door, or somebody moving into a purpose-built house that they've had designed. It's the things in the middle that we have the trouble with. We've got patchy systems and you're going to get patchy controls on them. And the best, companies like Florian's and the best hardware and software in the world will not prevent people getting in.
Yeah, now we're
Carl, if I'm allowed to add one more, because Mick is absolutely right. We have to keep in mind that a few years back, we have a so-called modem on board with a 56K speed. And, it was possible to send some characters on board. Today, we have VSAT on board. We have a flat rate. We have a very good connection. I mean, we can do augmented reality things. We can do video calling with the vessels and so on and so on. The problem is today we have the possibility to connect to the internet. This is a game changer. And on the other hand, we have interconnected systems. So everything is connected to the internet today. And this is resulting in, having the vessel as a sailing target today.
Yeah. Well, this is also, you're explaining the risk much in a way that people understand with the logic. This is something we've only had for the last 2 years. This is why we have to take this seriously as something new, isn't it? I mean, I'll just get a better understanding of the risk theme.
And you've got to remember as well, a lot of these people, a lot of the, so-called hackers, they're always sitting there, as our video, you're always sitting there with a hoodie on going like this, that, and the other. A lot of these people, I am told by the alleged experts in the IT experts in cyber, a lot of these people don't differentiate between a vessel, a bank, an automobile manufacturer. They're just looking at systems or something that they can break into. And the real clever guys are just writing programs, and they set this program away and they'll switch the laptop on in the morning and they've hacked into, I've hacked into Carl's system. They haven't got a clue what you do. They're not interested. They're into the system and they're into personal and corporate data, whether that's for a vessel, for a bank, for a government, whatever,
Well,
they're not bothered about it.
Well, should we go to Ravi Rao's question? So he's basically asking about training crew members to hack themselves. Well, I guess this, I don't know if you want people actually, well, you definitely don't want people actually hacking onto a ship, but it might be a good training approach to see how easy this could be. Is that something, Florian, you've thought of? I think it's, was it offensive is the best defense, I think.
What we have seen very often in other webinars, and as well from Digital Ship, are the live hacking events. So where you can very easily see how easy it is to hack into a system, because normally what the people believe is that hacking is a very complex and very difficult thing to do, but it is not. What we have shown today, just with a very small phishing email and just clicking on a link, it's already possible to get remote access to the vessel, or just open an attachment in an email. It's very easy to get access to the vessel. So in the end, of course, there are many, examples available in the internet. So, of course, the one can get back to me, and I am happy to provide it afterwards. So there are some live hacking webinars available, and this, of course, can be shared with the crew.
Oh, Well, we're getting to the last 5 minutes. I don't know if we want to sort of 2 minutes each for last words. There's a few sort of questions here. Dan Hearing, I think he's from a training academy in Estonia, but he said they're training deck cadets already in a 6 credits course. That's quite a long course. Well, they must be pretty good at cybersecurity at the end of that. So Chris Henney is talking about if the problem might come from mixing and matching. That's a very interesting point you made, Mick, about the loft extension and having different models. I've never thought that before. Do you want to make a 2 minutes, Mick, and then Florian to sort of sum up? And maybe...
well, I would just say this thing about the courses for academy. I think there are various levels of cyber training. I mean, I'm just pitching the bottom thing. I've been caught myself. If you go and you can search around and things, you can check to see if your email's been hacked in, different things like that. It happens. Providing we tell people and give them the core message and the key things, like don't open that email, don't use your USB port. Somebody come on board a vessel, you have to go up and tell the master, I'm sorry, but we're not sailing in an hour as planned because this guy's going to need 2 hours. I'm going to stand and watch him. And when he wants to upload software on that, I am going to do it the safe way. I'm not just going to let him get on with that so I can do my other tasks. There are core things that people must be doing, but I think just be aware that people are trying to steal your information and your company's information, and they're either doing that for money or, heaven forbid, for threat. And just be vigilant. And there's just a simple thing. I tell people, and again, I'm not from an IT background. I mean, I've been living in a hotel in Rotterdam for almost a year. The vast majority of people who go to a hotel, is a typical example, and this was proven by one of these hackers at a seminar we did. The vast majority of people go to a hotel, they want internet connection, they go up to the room, and I haven't come across one where you don't have to put your surname in as a username, and your room number is your password. And it's an unsecure way to join the internet. Mike, client I'm working for now, I can't log on because their systems won't allow me. I just can't put their computer on, it won't allow me. But I've got the PC I'm using at the moment, my personal Mac, I can log in there straight away. And I don't know who is in downstairs who hasn't hacked into the Hilton Hotel's network, so he's trawling through everybody's computers to check in. And it happens in real life. This is no longer the Bourne Identity, or the Mission Impossible. It's real life. So be careful. Be careful, please.
Well, Florian, you want a last word for a couple of minutes?
Yes, I can completely agree with Mick. I mean, I'm in shipping already 18 years now, and we at Waterway, we have seen really a lot. Yeah, and normally shipping companies get back to us and say, hey, no, we are secured and IMO 2021. I mean, this is everything we are done with it. And then we are asking, okay, let's do a risk assessment free of charge. Come on, let's do a risk assessment for one of your vessels and we will give you feedback. And they say, yeah, but we are protected. Yeah, but then let's give it a try. And in the end, and we had it just last week, we created and prepared and handed over a report with 4 pages with, let's say, with a risk gap analysis where the crew and also the shipping manager needs to take care of and needs to improve, because otherwise it will lead into, again, maybe an attack.
Wow, this ethical hacker approach, yeah. So we need to know about the risks. That's the best thing. That I think that's a great point to end. I think that's fantastic, and I think this all kind of ends up in a quite tidy idea about where we're going. So pass back to Vida. Thank you.
Thank you. So you heard Florian Felde from Waterway IT Solutions and Mick Thurlbeck from Stapleton International sharing very practical tips on how to train seafarers for cybersecurity. In this series, we also covered advice on maritime cybersecurity strategy and shipboard security that you can review on Digital Ship YouTube channel anytime. Now, Digital Ship is signing off. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Stay safe and sound.